Okay, folks, welcome to the July 15th, 2019 Test of Tactics Results meeting. Today is a special meeting where I'm going over a lot of the SEO changes, the on-page changes that we recently saw. And as per my lovely student request, I am going to start with the tactics so that they get the tactics first, and I can get through all that. And then I'm going to go through the science of how I came to the conclusions that I came to. And the science is pretty uncontroversial. I'm 99.9% sure of the science. The test all went very smoothly. I have a 0% standard deviation. The way I do testing, it's precise. Either the page moved or it didn't. There's no variance usually in most of the tests. That's not true. In some tests, there is a slight variance, but it happens very, very rarely when you know how to slow down the multivariable indexing. So I'm pretty sure about the testing. So I'm honored and flattered that you guys trust me enough, that you also trust the testing well enough that you don't want me to justify that first to you before showing the tactics. And I also appreciate that you're probably busy as well. So I will give you a quick 30-second what I discovered, just so you understand what we're talking about. And then I'll show you the tactics I recommend because of the discovery. And then after that, I'll talk for maybe about an hour about that, maybe 45 minutes. And then after that, I will go back to the test results and show you how I came to these conclusions to reassure you that this is not just my guesses. These are my conclusions. This is what the test suggests. And the test, the way I do the testing, you'll see it's very clear what it suggests. And so it's very obvious that we've discovered these atom bombs of a completely new revolutionary way of doing on-page SEO. We're picking apart quite a lot of the where we pulled back the curtain. We've seen the wizard completely naked. It was disgusting, trust me, but it's good for us to optimize by. So let's get started right as promised. So quickly, what I discovered very quickly, and I'll share the screen. We'll hide that. If anyone's on YouTube, go ahead and ask questions. If you guys want to jump in and ask questions, go ahead. I can also see questions in the Discord here, if you like. Very quickly, what I discovered, and I hope that's big enough for everyone to read, is this thing called on-page potency. So essentially, you can think of it like keyword density, but it's not keyword density per page, it's keyword density per element. So what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is it's not the page's keyword density that you need to matter about. It's the element. So it's the title. You need to worry about the keyword density in here. It's the meta description. You need to worry about the keyword density in there. It's the body. You need to worry about the keyword density in there. And maybe even P tags and whatnot, you need to worry about the keyword density in there. This is what I mean by element potency. I was talking about it a bit on the last show. I didn't really get to cover it then either. So that's what I had very quickly discovered, and I found out the proper variances for every on page, the proper variances, and these are all most of these are content vectoring with plus element potency plus QDD. Google is likes to mess with it. So that's the actual formula. The basis is content vectoring, then you add in element potency. That's kind of part of the same thing. Then you add in QDD, what Google likes to pump up or pump down. And I haven't learned all of QDD, but I've learned all of the proper variances for each on-page spot. So I've learned the proper title variance. That's EMQ, PMQ, if memory serves. Meta description is EMQ plus PMQ times 5 is what I tested up to. You could go even higher. The H1 is EMQ. Interestingly, it varies. It's just the EMQ. It wants only the EMQ. And then the first para is where you want to, I've also learned about proximity. You want to stuff everything in here, EMQ up to times 10 to your competitors, plus PMQ, plus the top LSI needs to go in here or can go in here. And that goes for the entire body doc. And that is density. So fewer words are better. The more words you add that are not EMQ, PMQ, or LSI words, the worse you're going to rank. It's potency per, not for the whole page, per element. And so if you have a 1,000-word document, that is 10% keyword density, overall, it's going to rank worse than a 500-page document that is 20% keyword density. But remember, that's also per the different on-page areas as well. They all have different variances they want. So in a nutshell, that's what I discovered. I can show you the experiments that prove that afterwards. As promised, based on that, I'm going to move right to the tactics you should be using, how we use Cora with this then, how we should be, I should also mention first paragraph, proximity. So proximity is important, the keyword density is important, the proper on-page variances for each of these are important. So unless there's any questions, I'm going to move right to the tactics I recommend on Cora, how to use Cora. I've just started doing this. I'm 99.9% sure of the experiments. I'm only about 90% sure of the tactics I'm about to recommend, but I have tested them a little bit. So let me see if there's any questions in general chat. No, any questions in YouTube? So Richard asks, so getting more LSI in doesn't help. Here's the problem. Is that there's a magical mathematical number, Rick, which is where the weight of the word is no longer worth adding it. And I don't know where that is, and that's going to be different per document. I hope that makes sense. So you'll see in the experiments when I get to them in the end, but there's going to be a magical mathematical number. First off, no, it doesn't help. These need to be all as short as possible. When I say EMQ, PMQ, I literally mean EMQ, PMQ with no extra words. When I say EMQ here, I literally mean EMQ with no extra words. The more words you add, the worse it is for these, for sure. And then for this area here, the more words you add that are not a top LSI and a PMQ, because we're still guessing here a little bit, right? We don't actually have a tool that does proper content vectoring. We have a tool that does LSI, which is close. So there is a magical number here where you're adding in LSI words, and they have there's a threshold where they have a boosting weight, but then you're going to go under the threshold, and they're not going to help you anymore. In fact, they're going to start to make the page sink a bit. Now, you can ignore stop words because they're going to, so you don't have to worry about that. It's going to be extraneous words that are you're rambling on and on and on, and adding more LSI does not necessarily seem to help. At least it doesn't for this area here. Definitely doesn't in this area here help adding extra LSI that you don't need to add. Here, now I'm forgetting the test. Another reason why I like to go through the testing first is I remember what I discovered. I have to answer that afterwards. I don't think one of my tests showed that in the main body you want to be as short as possible. I'm presuming because in the title, meta description, and H1, you want to be as short as possible, that you'll want to do that in the body as well. But so I might have to retest that. But that's the reason why I like to go through the test before I start talking, because it reminds me what I discovered. So I'll have to answer that afterwards. But I'm running on the hypothesis right now that if you want this to be as short as possible, then you want this to be as short as possible too. It's about density. It's not about anything else. And we'll see at the end, maybe I've already proven that. I can't remember if I've already proven that, because I like to do tests that prove like 8 things at once by carefully and cleverly structuring the tests. I can't remember if I've specifically proven this, or this was just a hypothesis based on what I found for here. But it's a good hypothesis because long pages also don't help you sell either. People generally like shorter pages. So this is what I'm running off for now. For this area, I'll have to do a further experiment to find out and know for sure. Is that satisfactory, Richard? Okay, he says, okay, interesting, can't wait, great. Okay, so as promised, because people have busy lives, let's go to the tactics that I'm recommending right now. Oh yeah, no, I did prove it because I did test keyword density in main content. Yes, I proved it. Yes, it's proved. So I'm sure about that. This was the exact test because I had pages here. Where this page had an extra 10 superfluous words. And always the pages that had less words in every area ranked best. So see, I've forgotten what I've already proven. So when I go back to this document, forget what I just said. I'm sure, yes, I'm sure it is this way for all of it. It is density and as short as possible. The shortest possible, the most dense, the most potent element potency, the most potent elements won every time, every place. I'll say that again. The most potent elements, I'm talking about HTML elements or tags won every time and place. That is important. In terms of this is what I tested. I didn't test unordered lists. I didn't test tables. I mean, I did test those previously. But this is short as possible everywhere. That's the rule, and I have tested it. I thought I did, but then I couldn't remember. So that being said, Martin asks, how could we split the title tag and H1 in WordPress if we need different keywords? Any idea? I'm not a WordPress guy, so I'm not really the best guy to ask. That's part of the reason why I hate WordPress, because it makes it harder to do proper on-page SEO. So yeah, you're going to have to find some way to do that. Editing the template. Would be one way to do it. Special plugin that lets you do it. Those are the answers there. The template, you know what I mean. Okay, so that being said, let's go to the tactics then. These are my best on-page recommendations based on July, the experiments I did from your Independence Day, my American friends, to the 15th, 2019, today. And so that's how fresh it is. And that will be updated I will be updating this page on a regular basis because on-page is complex enough now that I need kind of a separate document to kind of explain it. So remember, we discovered EMQ aspects, and the EMQ aspect is just angle to your article that Google likes to pick up. And it's the lion's share of query deserves diversity. And so it does give a good boost. So I already talked about that, so I'm not going to talk about too much, but remember that's there. So I'm going to kind of show you how to do all this together. Everything I've discovered, I'm going to try to show you how to do all together. So there's the EMQ aspect. This one doesn't have it as much, as strongly as this one has it, and it's no surprise that this one's ranking higher. Remember to choose your EMQ aspect wisely. It should be as closely related to your EMQ or what they search as possible in as few words as possible, as we just learned, because the more words you add, the less potent you are. Remember, this is the trick, adding aspect by adding as few words as possible. Because the more words you add, the less potent you are, and the less you will be on the EMQ. If you start really jamming in a huge aspect in there, it's not going to be as likely that Google's going to select it, or that you're going to rank for EMQ anymore. Now you're going to start ranking for subqueries and stuff like that. You're going to tailor your word cloud to differently. But then there's a third danger that if you choose, I've noticed if you choose an aspect that's oversaturated, then you might not show up at all. So it is kind of, it is a bit of a Faustian bargain. It is a bit of a, you want to add, if you want to go for the aspect, you don't have to go for aspect. You could leave it alone. But if you want to go for aspect and get that boost, that QDD boost, then you've got to choose it wisely. It's a bit of an art. You should be as closely related to the EMQ as possible and what they search as possible in as few words as possible so you don't reduce your potency. And also, but if you choose one that's oversaturated, like reviews is the one I did, it doesn't show up on the SERP at all, which was surprising. It gets filtered totally because Google's like, yeah, I have enough of these. I have 7 of these. I have 10 of these. I don't need any more. So you got to kind of check the SERP for a number of things. We have to do SERP analysis before we kind of plan our on-page out. If you're in doubt or it's all oversaturated and you're not sure or you can't get one to go, just go with the basic EMQ, PMQ. You could also try 2 pages at that point. You could try one that's plain, EMQ, PMQ, and one with an aspect and see which one Google likes. You could do 5 different aspects, including one that's just EMQ, PMQ, and see what they like. So I hope that makes sense. Yes, it is. That's what I'm talking about now. No questions are there. Okay, good. I'll continue. All right, so keep that in mind. Now, keep this in mind as well. URL, which I'm going to include in this big tactics report. I've included it based on the experiments I did 2 or 3 weeks ago, but URL should not be included to aspect. Unless you want spot 6. The best you can get is spot 6 from my testing is what I saw. So your EMQ should be, your URL should be /emq.html. That was the best one. Not /emq add my aspect here. That's not what you want to do. Because this is apparently taking you off. This takes you off the vector. And this just reduces your potency. So that's not what you want to do. So here's some background for the past tests. The past test, the past tests, not the past tests. The past tests show that it does not like varying from the vector much, which makes sense in vector series. So only use title and first paragraph to set the aspect in as few words as possible. I've tested this, where to set the aspect properly. I remember I had that big test, and title and first paragraph, the first way I tried it, worked the best. Even title and first paragraph and meta description was worse than just title and first paragraph. Now, that's not to say that Google won't choose an aspect for you that's all over the place. It will. But that's the best. That was the best place to set it that ranked the best. So examples would be new or best red apples on the market. That's 3 words. New is even less words. Best red apples, new would be best. Also, as I said, if your aspect is too different from the EMQ, it might not even show up. If so, delete that aspect and try again. You can use more if you want, but that pushes you down to spot 3 at possible, at best. More spots, I guess. I mean, more spots if you want. You will know when Google likes your aspect as they will show it in the SERPs on your EMQ search. Maybe even correlated with a boost after fetching. It should be directly after fetching, or at least 24 hours after fetching. No more than. If they're already showing that, if they're already showing a title and first paragraph combination for you, well, then they've already chosen your aspect. That's it. You probably already have that aspect boost. You probably don't want to mess with it at that point. So like I said, it's a bit of an art. So you got to kind of understand what you're going for, understand what you want to do, and you're riffing with Google, and Google's riffing at the same time. They're like, this one? You're like, no. They're like, this one? You're like, yeah, okay, good. Or they're like, this one? You're like, okay, keep it, because I don't want to mess with it. So it's that kind of thing. You're kind of trying to trick Google. You're trying to kind of tweak and finagle Google to give you the aspect you want and give you that boost. As few words as possible, and as few places as possible, because that ranks best. Now, here's another thing that we've gotten from this, and I'm going to go over this again much deeper below. You should use spot 1 to 2-ish. Actually, see below for core CV analysis. I talk about this below, actually. Never mind. I'll delete this from here. I talk about this below. There's no point in me repeating myself. Yeah, again, it shows that all that is needed and desired for setting aspect apparently is title and first paragraph. I showed that my experiment actually proved this. And shows the far field or zany QDD aspect boost kick in at spot 3, 4, and sometimes 6. Spot 1 to 2 might have this as well. It usually had date. Usually this was year date, e.g. for this year, 2019. That's what usually ended up being in spot 1 when they QDD placed it there. But that's hard to tell sometimes when all the pages, all the competitors are also EMQ and PMQ. When all the competitors are doing the EMQ, PMQ kind of properly in the proper places, the URL, the title, the description, and the H1, then it's sometimes hard to tell if they're up there because of aspect or they're up there because of good on page, or both. It can be sometimes hard to tell. So there's possible tactic here. Go for date first. See if they like it. Like it / take it. The reason why I say that is because although undoubtedly all of your competitors are probably already going for it, but who cares? Our tactics are good enough that you can beat them. I would prefer you go for an open spot on the SERP. It should be much easier to get there based on going for an open spot. Nobody talks about, nobody has gone for the, I don't know, on the market aspect. And so we're going to talk about that we're best on a market. And then no one's talking about that, so we'll go for that. And then maybe Google will be like, oh, great, something new, something different. Let's see if users like this. And they're going to put you up there, right? But our tactics are powerful enough, and our experimentation is so good, and the results we're getting back in the experimentation is so good that theoretically you should be able to just also go for e.g. You should be able to go for other aspects that they've gone for, and as long as it's not super oversaturated, who knows? Maybe they'll select you. Maybe Google's going to be like, yeah, you've got the right content vectoring plus element potency plus aspect that looks good to me. Okay, I'll put it up there. So you never know. Okay, so just keep in mind when setting aspect, you need a good first introductory paragraph. It needs to be obvious. Some people are having trouble setting their aspect because they don't have a good introductory paragraph. They have a question at the top. They have a table at the top. They have other stuff at the top of the page that is not making it easy for Google to tell what that page is about. To Google. And you have to replicate that title line almost exactly. If you're in doubt, label the first paragraph, who's this article for, or introduction, or synopsis, or just make it obvious in the verbiage that this is what the article is about. Either way, remember, the search, this is the relation for the aspect. The search, the title, and the main content match pretty exactly. And like I said, you'll know it's working when you see that sentence show up in your snippet. And keep in mind, you might already have a QDD boost from your aspect, even if you haven't done it right. And so if you go playing with it, you might drop a couple spots because you got rid of your QDD boost. No, your first para must be directly under your H1 for maximal keyword potency, at least in the HTML. You remember you want proximity. Okay, so here's some other ideas about how you could try to do aspect or use aspect. If Google doesn't want to rank you very well, then you're sure you did the on-page right to the right levels. Then, so if you're in general, if you're trying to rank, and you're sure you did the on-page right based on what I talk about today. So it's all going to be based on what I talk about today, by the way. And once you see what I'm recommending you do today, you're sure you've done that right, then change your EMQ aspect. They might just have too many of that aspect, or they didn't understand your verbiage, or you added too many words and diluted your on-page power, your potency. So change / shorten your EMQ aspect and see if Google likes that again. So for example, you're hitting reviews, maybe they want the date. You were hitting best, maybe they want try award winning. Something no one else has, preferably, because that should be easier for you. Maybe even something that will sell better. The experiment I did shows the aspect can be anything. Remember, I used gibberish. I did this experiment with gibberish twice. Google ranked me on the blah, 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 blah aspect. That means nothing. Google is not intelligent. It doesn't have a semantic engine in the way that we understand semantics. It doesn't understand anything. It just saw EMQ and other words and thought, hey, I've never seen this before. I'll put it at number 1, see if the users like it. It does not understand. So that really matters. That really proves you can put anything in here you want. You are free to choose whatever aspect or angle for your EMQ that you present to the public that you want. Because I did it with gibberish twice. The question is Google going to select it? The content vectoring of the words you select, are they close enough to the vector? Are they far enough from the vector? Are people going to click it and like it? Does Google already have 100 people trying to do that, and so they're not even going to bother indexing you? Those are the questions. Does that make sense, guys? Can I get a yes if that makes sense somewhere?
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, voice from the ether. Who was it? Oh, that's George. Thanks, George. I should have known it was George. George is like, he's like in my room somewhere. Yes. what? I'm looking around. Where's George? Okay. Okay, so then let's go through the tactics specifically for title tags and the different areas I discovered. And then I'm going to show you examples for all of it put together. And then I'm going to go through how you would use Cora with all this, okay? So that's the kind of the theory we're working with. I've kind of explained all the theory that experiments have shown. Now I'm going to talk about the tactics for each area as I discovered it, as I tested each area. Then I'm going to go through tactics of putting it all together, examples of how you could put it all together. And they may or may not be the best examples. You know, it is an art, so it takes some time to think about it. But that's a good thing, because that means we're going to have the advantage and no one else is going to have this advantage, because we're going to have a higher black belt in this art than they are, so to speak. And then I'm going to talk about how you would do core reports with that afterwards. Okay. Okay. So the first one is, this is the best way to do the title tag. The best is, quite frankly, what takes up the least space, is exactly on topic, has the EMQ, and has an aspect that you would repeat in the first paragraph, and is maximally clickable. So EMQ PMQ would be the best on-page boost. It was theoretically. It beat EMQ. It beat EMQ EMQ. It beat EMQ LSI. EMQ PMQ is specifically, for some reason, what Google has decided in this iteration of Google, what they're looking for. So that's the best, or with as few non-EMQ PMQ words as possible, you put the aspect with the PMQ in it, or EMQ PMQ aspect like that. So for example, the best example here actually is buy HGH today. Buy. That's the best example. That's one of the better examples I could think of. Now, this doesn't mean people are going to click it. I'm just saying from the EMQ PMQ perspective, because here's the EMQ, here's the PMQ. There are no extra words. Pound for pound, this would beat, other than just an exclamation mark, pound for pound, this would beat every other title for the EMQ by HDH today. But that's not always going to work, right? So I don't know. You might have to do some brainstorming. You guys can go ahead and ask people in our group. Ask them, hey, these are the titles I want to use. Can you guys think of any others? Let's crowdsource our creative intelligence, and let's put titles in the group, in the general chat or in the on page, wherever you want, and have people see if they can come up with any better titles or any other aspect you might want to try. But these also work too. Now, and don't get uptight or stressed about this, right? We are on the bleeding edge of squeezing out the most amount of potency because we do SEO optimization, and the optimization is optimal. It always is pushing up to the top. But if you accidentally put an extra word in here, that's probably not going to sync your rankings, right? That's one tiny little mistake that is probably in here. That's probably not going to sync everything. Then again, if you do that in 20 different places, 20 different times, well, then number one spot might be impossible for you. You might be limited at spot 4. But, usually having an extra word in here, especially if it's a stop words like the, it, not, common English words that are conjunction, like not conjunctions, but they're conjunctory. They put other words together. The glue of the sentence, really. Is, it, the, that kind of thing. Those are all usually ignored by Google. I imagine they would be in this case as well. And they'd be so ubiquitous, they'd have such a content vector weight that it would be fine to use them anyway. So here's some other examples. Chicago Movers, Top Movers 2019. That's going for this aspect. Chicago Movers, moving sale on all month. By the way, for this title and first paragraph combination, Google might just go with the 2019 aspect. They might ignore top 10 movers. Moving sale on all month, that might get people to click. Moving is the PMQ to the EMQ here. Usually moving and movers, movers, that'll all be a PMQ or a top LSI. So et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I hope that makes sense. Make sure you're echoing it. You have parity in your first paragraph. You need first paragraph parity. Now, reminder, do not double up EMQ in the title. It did not test well. It always tested underneath, like EMQ, EMQ, like that in the title. Always was under EMQ, PMQ. Even if the competition has it, do not do it. That's the one place where you need to beat them, but not go over threshold. That would be over threshold. That would be over optimized. Okay, tactics for the first paragraph. So it's kind of the same deal. Here's the EMQ for the title. Here's a free latex. Here's the PMQ here. Allergy free is actually LSI as well. So if you can make your aspect out of LSI and PMQ, that would be the best way to do it, unless you can just be PMQ. Just PMQ is stronger than LSI and PMQ. So to go back to what Rick asked earlier, just EMQ and PMQ is stronger than EMQ, PMQ, and LSI. I tested it. That's how I realized it was potency, that's density, it's keyword density of the most important keywords. But if you had LSI in here and your competitor had latex gloves, non-LSI, 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 this title would be the non-LSI title. I hope that makes sense. So it's about beating them. It is about beating your competitors on match words, but not going over a certain threshold. And not all match words are created equal. EMQ is more powerful than PMQ, which is more powerful than LSI, but they have thresholds where you're not allowed to go over in certain spots. And like I said, for the title, it's EMQ and PMQ. is the most dense and the most potent you can go without going over threshold. And how would you match that in the first paragraph? Well, technically, this line here should match this one. Now, I don't know if it will. Google is pretty good at their sentence analysis. They should know that allergy-free is the same as non-allergic. They should know that. And so this should match this if you did it, but it might not. This might not be close enough. So that might not be close enough. And when you get to writing your content, it's kind of like this. It's like, no, 2, when writing your content, it is merely an opportunity to sell Google and users. 1, selling Google. Every sentence is an opportunity to add in EMQ, add in matchwords. Well, EMQ, EMQ when it comes to the most potent words allowed for whatever area you're talking about, and reduce other words. So that's how you should think of when you're writing a sentence. That's what you should think of. It's like doing. It's an opportunity to add in most potent words allowed and reduce the other words. Is an opportunity to sell humans by building value and allaying fear. That is the great art of balancing these two things. Remember, you can use images to connote words as well, thus reducing your extraneous on-page words and boosting potency. Images and CSS tricks, and likely non-indexable Ajax tricks as well. You have to be careful of that, though, that Google's not actually indexing it. And don't use the iframe because they do render that as well. So that's just something I thought of. Because, like I said, this is kind of a new thing we're doing here. Okay, the H1. Does anyone have any questions about that part of it? If that made sense, let me know. If anyone has any questions about that part of it. I don't see any questions. Okay, good. All right, so the H1. So this is the testing of the H1. Surprisingly, it does not follow the pattern. I was so surprised by that. I'm like, because again, Google does not want to make patches on top of their content vectoring algorithm. The more patches they add, the more maintenance they have, the more trouble they have. So I couldn't believe that they wanted H1 just to be EMQ, but they did. Whereas I tested this exact thing in titles and this one in titles. It was better than the EMQ alone. So that's the crazy thing. H1 broke that mold and it just wants to be EMQ. So you do not do your aspect here. It moves you away from the vector too much. And also it, unless you're trying to go for spot 3, 4, or 6 respectively, because there's nowhere else on the SERP you could possibly break in, you don't want to put the aspect in here. You just want to have the EMQ. So the H1, do not double up EMQ on H1 either. Even if your competitors have it, it did not test well. The other heading tags, I'm not sure. See what Core does. I haven't tested them yet. If you have to use multiple words in the H1, get your EMQ as far left as possible. This is what we tested anyways. This is what matters in the tests. And if you don't like that, if you're like, well, I don't like having my H1 and with no other words beside it, you can do stuff. You can, with CSS, sneak other words after the H1. For example, you do an H1 and you put your EMQ in here and you close the H1, but then in here you do style equals, and there's some CSS style, I can't remember what it is, remove the block quality to this tag. I can't remember what it is, but I know you can remove the block quality to the tag, meaning it will not make a hard return. And then whatever you type here, style it the same. Style it to desired style, which you might want to put the same, but it will flow right underneath. And that will render. And that will literally render like this. So you can have a complete sentence. But as far as Google's concerned, your H1 only had the EMQ. I haven't tested this exactly, but I'm 99% sure it'll work. Because Google's not going to read this style. They're not going to know that's not a block level element. All they're looking for is H1 as a logical character formatter, to use the vernacular, as the proper way of making your proper heading, so they know properly what your page is supposed to be about. They're only going to care about this. They're not going to care about any of this shit. I guarantee you. So if you want to have a longer sentence, you can do it. But just remember, now this is your first paragraph now. Any words you're putting in here, you're diluting your potency, your document potency. But you're not diluting your H1 potency. But it's much better to dilute your document potency than your H1 potency, because your H1 potency is pretty specific, exactly what it wants. The document potency is where you can afford to add in some extra weight. Does that make sense, guys? Can I get a yes if that made sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah? Okay, good. All right, Rick asks, when you say don't double up keywords, would electric guitars and acoustic electric guitars cause a drop if you had to? It depends where you had it, but yes. The answer is yes. Electric guitars is a PMQ of acoustic electric guitars. Those probably should be on different pages. You need to check Google to make sure. But acoustic electric guitars and electric guitars are two different beasts, two different things. So they probably need to be on two different pages. In the H1, yeah, for sure. The H1 wants EMQ. That's it. And like I said, these should probably go on different pages anyway. Okay. All right. Tactics for the meta description. As of July 12th, I stuffed the meta description full with 5 PMQs, and you can do it. It wants EMQ PMQ. It does not want EMQ EMQ. It wants EMQ PMQ, like that. That one did the best. It does not want any extra sentences. No more, no less. So it kind of ends up being used kind of like the meta keywords, if you want to use it that way. And keep in mind, if you do it this way, Google should never show it. Now, should never show it. Now, competitors only see it if they check, but they might not get so pissed if it's not stuffed on EMQ, or they might rat you out. So you have to be careful, right? You have to be a little bit careful about that. So if you wanted to do the most potent meta description tag, if you want to do the most potent meta description tag, you're safe to do up to 5 PMQs. I've done 5. You could do EMQ PMQ times 1,000 if you wanted. I don't know if it compares qua meta tags, or if it's going to start comparing qua the other tags, the other elements. I believe the latter is probably accurate. So you can add massive weight in your meta description. Excuse me, it's nowhere near as powerful as your title or your URL, for example. I did test that. But that's what I've safely tested up to, was PMQ times 5. And it beats LSI. I tested all the other things here. I tested all this stuff the same way. And I found that PMQ times 5 on meta description is what works the best. Okay. So it's up to you if you want to write a sentence and stuff apples in there, or if you just want to do this, that would be the most potent. You're running the risk of Google noticing that, and or your competitors rat. Then Google will never notice unless your competitors rat you out. And if your competitors rat you out, Google might decide to write an over-threshold algorithm like they did for everything else. They just haven't done for this yet. So, and keep in mind, when we're using these advanced techniques, we are going to have to watch our sites very carefully for updates, because that's exactly the kind of thing that they'll be tweaking. Is this the way the meta description works for them, the way that H1s work for them, the way that that first paragraphs work for them, the way that title tags work for them? That's what they're gonna. That's some of the stuff they're going to be tweaking every time. And so you can't do leaderboard tests, sadly. I'd have to manually retest again, but we could. If we suddenly saw a bunch of people do these on-page tactics, and we see a bunch of drops on an update, this would be one of the first things I would check. But until then, we will enjoy the tremendous boosts, because that's SEO. That's how SEO works. Until Google catches us, we enjoy the tremendous boosts. That's how it works. I'm sorry, the cycle used to be within 5 to 10 year cycles. Then it was 2 year. Then it was 1 year. Then now it's like 6 month cycles sometimes. So that's why you follow the tactics of science-based testing and in a secret group, as opposed to the public black hat tactics of a public group, because they are the ones that Google hammers on the hardest. Okay, so let's go through the complete aspect examples. Before I do that, does anyone have any questions about this? Can I get anyone have any questions about this? Does this make sense to you guys?
I have a little question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Did you land on 5 just because it's the highest number you tried, or is it exact?
Yes.
Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah, it's the highest number I tried. So I'm guessing you could do way more in there if you wanted. But because risk mitigation is job 2, optimization is job 1, risk mitigation is job 2. Because risk mitigation is job 2, I tell my students, I tested up to 5. That's where I know it's safe in terms of meta descriptions compared to other meta descriptions.
Yeah, I get that.
So I suspect you could probably go higher, but that's really going to piss your competitors off if they look inside your meta description and see you've stuffed in the PMQ in there 500 times. So it's up to you guys which way you want to go there. No more questions? Okay, great. So now let's move on to the complete aspect example. So I give you some steps of how you would go through doing on page. And then I'm going to go through Cora underneath that. So I'm going to go through the complete aspect on page examples of kind of how you're setting it up, and some things you'd look at, what you do, and then some of it I talked about above, but I'm going to kind of give you complete examples. And then I'm going to talk about the Cora underneath. So step 1. So first thing you want to do is look at what regular aspects your competitors have gone for and see if there's an opening. You never know. Your niche might have just got cleared out. Maybe it's a long tail keyword. Maybe it's a low competition keyword where only a bunch of amateurs or no one knows what they're doing has gone for it. And maybe they haven't gone for the best or date or reviews, which are the ones that Google seems to like the most. And so maybe you should try those ones and see if you can get those. So for example, let's say I was doing Philadelphia car accident lawyers. And let's say I was like, okay, Philadelphia car attorneys, car accident lawyer, car accident lawyers, car accident attorneys serving Philadelphia. Philadelphia injury lawyers is the aspect that went here. Notice it's not a winning aspect. Top Philadelphia car accident lawyer. I don't believe you're allowed to say that. I think that's not allowed to say that unless they literally won some kind of award and can prove that in court. I'm not a lawyer. I can't give legal advice, but all the lawyers I talk to when I'm doing their on-page SEO, they're like, don't ever say I'm the top or the best lawyer. I'm like, okay. They have had a problem with that. So yeah, so I don't see any aspect going on here at all. But remember, I said last time, and I don't know, I can't remember where in here I'll say it, but four word keywords usually have less of an aspect, because that is the aspect, right? That's the angle. You want a Philadelphia car accident lawyer. That's the angle, right? There is no other angle to it, or less. You might want a top Philadelphia car accident lawyers. You might want car accident lawyers 2019. The other thing to look at is what is a related search. I don't see, sometimes you see the date in here. I don't. Car accident lawyer PA. Notice how the law queries are really weird. You would imagine that car accident lawyer PA and Philadelphia car accident lawyers would, quite frankly, be the same search, but it's not. So you've got to be very careful when you're optimizing on this. And notice how Rosenbaum and Associates are such a powerful content vector that even the entity, so to speak, gets the boost here, when usually Google recognizes proper nouns and will demote proper nouns. These guys are so high up on the content vector that they're getting high up on there. This explains why Ted's experiment went awry. Oh Jesus, Josh, I had to mention Ted again. The grudge is never over. No, I know, I know how it sounds, but remember that experiment he did? That's the reason why, because names aren't high in the content vector. Google doesn't allow it. That's another patch. Even when names should be high in the content vector, like the experiment I did where Amazon was high on the content vector. Okay, now, so I don't see a lot there. So that would be a very interesting thing you would do. You could go for it. And then either, if in doubt or your hands are tied, just go with the plain Jane EMQ or PMQ. Right? If you don't know what else to do, or make up your own short, small aspect out of combinations of the normal tested ones, like the date, best, reviews. You could even use all of them. You know, top. It depends on the niche, of course. For Philadelphia car accident lawyers, you know, you could go Philadelphia car accident lawyers 2019, or top rated Philadelphia car accident lawyers 2019. Again, I've been told you can't do that, but I'm just saying for the sake of examples for SEO. Another method you can do that I talked about last time is you could try, let's say, 5 different aspects at once. Make 5 pages optimized for the same page. You would do all the EMQ the same, and the only thing last you would do, you're optimizing one page, then you would copy it 4 other times and just change the aspect, change the title and first paragraph to have 5 different EMQs and see which one Google likes the most, and then 301 all the other pages to that page. And if Google doesn't like any of them, change all their aspects and refetch them and see which one boosts the highest. One of these is going to be highest. And so that would be the one you'd go for, right? Google is going to choose one of these, for example, and one of them is going to rank higher than the rest. Beware if it's one of the 2-word ones, because that technically should rank higher than this, because this is less potent because it's more words. I hope everybody got that. I would not at all be surprised to see if this one ranked higher than this one, or this one ranked higher than this one, because this is more potent because it has less extraneous words than this in various places, in the title, in the first paragraph, and in the meta description if you place it there, which you're not supposed to. You don't have to, but if you happen to put it there. And definitely not the URL. Never put aspect in the URL. Ever. Not on purpose anyway. Like if you happen to have best affiliate products reviews, that's fine. Then you're going for a reviews angle whether you like it or not, because you have reviews in your main URL string. So you don't have much of a choice. But at that point, but that's fine. That would really help you rank for review queries. That'd be perfectly fine. But you would never want to go emq-reviews.html because emq.html or emq alone would always rank better, just like the H1. Just like the H1. The URL and the H1 are similar. The title and the first paragraph are similar. Okay, and so also, and just in my dream of dreams, it's a kind of a two-pronged approach. One, giving Google the standard of kind of what they're probably looking for and wanting, as long as no one else is taking it and no one else is all over it. Versus, why not make a new one? Why not make one that would really get you the clicks, like up to 50% off, limited time sale, buy one get one free. Like, as try to say this in as few words as possible, like sale now. That would get people clicking. Sale now, best sale of the year. In the title, anyway. In the title, I would use as few words as possible. Best red apples sale now. That's only 2 extra words. I wouldn't get verbose in the title. I would get verbose in the first paragraph because that's where you can afford to be more verbose. So in the title, it should be like best red apples sale now, and then in the first paragraph, you could say we have a sale on now. It's the best sales of the year. That's going to get human beings clicking, because at the end of the day, we gotta satisfy Google's intelligence or lack thereof, and we have to satisfy the shopper's intelligence or lack thereof. And that's the two different, distinctly, terribly, completely different intelligences we need to write our page for. And so I think this is going to work well when people see stuff like free samples, free shipping, free parking. Like if you had a haircut place and said free parking, if parking is a big deal in your area, then maybe that would be a big deal. Or free shipping, if you're doing a shipping thing, free shipping or free samples. People love free samples if you can do that. The clicks do matter. The clicks are the thing that fulfill in the circle of all of these algorithms. None of these algorithms work. Aspect, queue, content vectoring, none of that works unless it gets the clicks in the end anyway. And then I also thought, well, you could do other stuff. Like you could try to go the sex angle or the clickbait angle. That would probably get clicks, but it's a lot of words, and I don't know if Google is going to rank you for that. So again, you really got to. I have no problem using sex to sell, but you really got to consider what Google's going to do for that. It could be one of the ones you try in the top 5. And so, and you're going to be like, "But Josh, aren't we worrying about duplicate content?" The answer is yes, but what you're doing theoretically is you're going to see which one Google likes the most, and then you're going to forward everything to that. So you're going to go for that. And that would be perfectly fine. And then once you've done that, once you've made your page, don't forget to throw Facebook traffic at it, because that is a way that in the field has been shown a number of times to cement that change, to get Google to appreciate and accept that change, or to, as I say here, solidify the on-page change. So don't forget that as a tactic. And that could also include Facebook traffic that's direct, or job board traffic that's direct, or CTR traffic that goes through the SERP and clicks your result in the SERP. Okay, so let's go through some examples of how that would look on specific pages. So again, here's example number 1. Remember, the PMQ and aspect can be merged to be the same thing. They probably should be. So latex gloves, that's what we want to rank for. New gloves is the aspect. Green here is the PMQ. Latex gloves again is the H1. Oh, the meta description. I've stuffed in here the PMQ a bunch of times, but also made it a real sentence. Latex gloves, disposable gloves, free gloves, rubber gloves, powder gloves, non-powder gloves, and more. And then you add the email at the end. Remember to add the email, because that's still a boosting factor as far as we know. Last time we tested. It's best if this goes long enough to get the periods, so people have to click on your page to email you. And then looking for latex gloves, again, we are stuffing in as many words that are EMQ as possible, and any other word that's not EMQ is going to be an LSI if possible. This is the words that are going to start watering it down. But we're trying to make it as potent as possible. So does that make sense, how I structured this based on everything I've said? You can use CSS or other images to get other words there if you want, like I said. Does this make sense, guys, the way I've structured it based on Darlene says, yes, it does. Great.
Yeah, makes perfect sense.
Okay, good. Great. Okay, then let's look at another example. Oh, that's good for later. Let's look at example number 2. And so then after that, you would do core from there. The headings, I would match competitors, but never go ×2 EMQ. The main text is EMQ equal to a maximum 10 to 30% of any of their keywords. It's safe to go up to ×10. But I wouldn't do that just in case Google ever makes that an over-optimization threshold. I doubt they would. You could probably stuff it full if you want. But you have to see the HTML template for the other miscellaneous tags and tricks, which is still in the quickies folder. Oh, okay, example number 2, PMQ and EMQ. The PMQ and aspect can be separate if it needs to be. So let's say you've been trying everything on this, and so you tried all the short ones like Chicago Movers 2019, Chicago Movers Reviews, Chicago Movers, Movers. You've tried all that. People don't like it. So you're like, okay, Chicago Movers.html is the best one. And by the way, you can get your web server to say .html, even if it is not. You have to usually edit the Apache conf if you're using, that's usually where you would do that, is the Apache conf, I think. I'm pretty sure. How you would do that in WordPress, I have no idea. I think you'd still edit the Apache conf, but WordPress might have its own setting for that. Anyone who knows, I could ask Thane. He's an apprentice who knows about that stuff. I'll ask him if there's an easier or better way to do it, or if I've got that wrong. So here's an aspect that's pretty long. Let's say Google liked this one the best. Great. So here's the PMQ, and it's separate from the free in-house estimate, but people love the free in-house estimate. Let's say that's what they want, and that's the aspect that Google seems to love. So we go for it, free in-house estimate, and our meta description is Chicago Movers. We're truck movers, Movers Chicago, Chicago Moving, Chicago Illinois Movers, Moving Service. Now that's starting to look more like a list of keywords, but Google should never show this, really, at the end of the day. H1 is Chicago Movers, and if you want to say something else after that because you just don't think that looks, you think that looks spammy or not good, fine, use CSS or an image to get other words here if you want that. And then I think the first paragraph can be a bulleted list. I don't think that would be a problem. So you can do an unordered list here. And when looking for Chicago Movers, consider Chicago Movers who move you carefully, Chicago Movers who give you a free in-house estimates to make sure your job is done right and your truck filled properly. Stuffing in the EMQ as much as possible. And then stuffing in LSI words. Sentences that are just there to put in LSI words and partial match query words. That's the whole purpose of on-page SEO. Every sentence, the purpose of that sentence is to stuff in the heaviest words possible without going over threshold for that element. And the thresholds for inside the body are, I've tested up to ×10. And they rank number 1. Not the same for these suckers. It is kind of not for EMQ on meta description anyway. PMQ, yes, but not EMQ. Okay, does that example make sense, guys? So you could do it this way, and you just have to see, like, would Google select this? I don't know if they would. This is breaking my example a bit of having a paragraph here, but I think Google should probably accept this. They're pretty good at reading the content, but you'd have to try it and see. Maybe try 5 of them and see which one they like the most. Does that make sense? How that way you would do it?
Yep.
Okay, someone said yeah. Someone spoke for the crowd. Okay, now here's another question you might ask. What about the content vector? Should we be adding an unordered list that the content vector doesn't have? The answer is, I think you can, if you can get away with not adding random non-vectored HTML, that would be great, especially weird tags. Like, don't put in weird tags that no one else is using. That's for sure. But the UL tag is not weird. It has some weight in general. We've seen that in testing. And you could do it with CSS in the P tag if necessary. You could do this all with CSS styling if you had to. And as far as Google would be concerned, it would just be a big sentence, a big long paragraph under the H1. So keep that in mind if you're having trouble getting Google to select your estimate. But you know you want to have a list because it looks kind of spammy otherwise. This is better for humans than it is for Google at the moment, but I think it should still be okay for Google. And then the same rules, core from there. Headings, match your competitors, but don't 2 times 2 EMQ anywhere in any heading. H2, H3, H4, H5, H6. And the main text, the same deal. I would go 10 to 30% over their matches and their keyword density. Don't see the HTML template for other miscellaneous tags tricks, and the core recommendations below. So here's example number 3. Now remember, plurals on EMQ are likely concatenated. So plurals on the exact match query, Philadelphia is a bad example. That lawyer one is a bad example, but usually best matchers toppers and best matchers topper is topper and toppers is interchangeable there usually. And they're likely concatenated. So, and Google is good at understanding language meaning. So it likely doesn't have to be the exact same aspect sentence, although that was what was tested. So you could go for something like this. Again, best matches topper would be the URL. Best matches would be the best URL you could do. Best matches topper, list of top quality toppers, only 50% price. 50% price is for the humans to get the click. List of top quality toppers is for both humans and for Google. The conjoining meta description you could use for this is best matches topper, best topper, matches topper, latex topper, 3-inch topper, LSI topper, whatever. I already said latex topper, maybe hypoallergenic topper. And you could argue that this might be useful for humans, showing them very quickly that you have all these options. And I don't think Google would ever show it, but this does have EMQ and the PMQ potency that is the most potent meta description possible that I tested. You could add in more PMQ in here if you want to, if you like. And sorry, this is not the most potent. This is very, very potent because I've reduced the potency to some degree by adding an LSI. But I'd be better than just random word. LSIs have more weight than random words have no weight. LSI has more weight than random words. PMQ has more weight than LSI. EMQ has more weight than PMQ. The H1 you could probably get away with best matchers toppers, even though you're trying to rank for best matchers topper. You could probably get away with it because, like I said, plurals in the EMQ are likely concatenated. Again, I'm not entirely sure about that. I could test that. That could be tested theoretically. And the paragraph you could do there would be something like, again, you have to just echo this thing you did up here. Top 10 list of best matches toppers that are now 50% off. That's where I'm trying to get Google to pick up that sentence for the aspect. And then after that, you would say best matches toppers an egregious amount of times. And feel free to add the LSI as you like in here too. Same recommendations for core after that. Okay, so does anyone have any questions about that? Does that example make sense? And the reasoning behind it?
Yes.
Just make sure everyone's on the same page. Yeah, you guys are on the same page. This is making sense? I don't see any no. So I'm guessing it is. I'm guessing it does. Okay, good. Okay, all right. And the fourth and I think last example is, so this one has no clear PMQ because this the word they're trying to rank for here is debal or deball or whatever this is, which is a shortening for kind of a brand name, I think. And so technically it doesn't have a partial match query. It's one word technically. And so there's no clear PMQ. Use top LSI for everything. Use top LSI or nothing, quite frankly. In testing aspect match on your page, much more important than LSI match. your page to theirs. No, do not use the do not use angle might get overwritten. The title will be overridden by Google's chosen aspect to match. So there's all the kind of clickbaity ways you could talk about this. You know, should you use deval? Do not use, and then there's a variation way of spelling it. So that is a PMQ. Without reading this first, that could be too much because this word and this word might be considered EMQ, and so you've doubled up the EMQ. Google might take that dash in and out automatically, just like sometimes it takes S's out automatically. So you could substitute with a dianabol, maybe, but there will be space concerns because that's a heavier word, but with a much lower LSI. It is a top LSI. It is not the top LSI. I'll say it's a good LSI to make sense. So then you could even go to this. Do not use without reading this first. Your meta description would be deval, aka deval, danabol, and LSI if you want. So that's what you would do. If in doubt, if you don't have a PMQ, use the top LSI. Because quite frankly, the PMQ is usually the top LSI. And so I don't know if I was testing EMQ, PMQ variations, or if I was testing EMQ top LSI variations. I don't know at the end of the day. Because like I said, PMQs are often the top LSI. The H1 would just say deval, and I would use a CSS trick to put up a sentence, a more complete sentence, should you risk it? And then, then this is not as potent, but it's good for the type of thing we're trying to do. There's a new supplement on the shelves. Everyone in the gym is using it. It's called deval. Should you use it? Let's find out. The facts, and then you use BR hard. You could use breaks as well here. This would be fine. And deval or deval. Let's go down. And this is just me adding in PMQs or other EMQs in the text. In the text, I could do that as much as I like. It grows stupid strength. This is for humans and for Google as well. Strength is an LSI, etc. And remember on this one, don't forget to use the Dr. GMB trick. Remember last year, we tested it, and if you have a byline, if a byline from a doctor with a GMB and you spell their name exactly correctly, it boosted. You might have to pay a doctor for this. It might be illegal to say a doctor wrote it when they didn't, or they endorse your content when they never actually have. I'm not a lawyer. I can't give legal advice. Just be wary of that. But that's kind of single word keywords. That's kind of how I would look at it. And again, the aspect is all subject to change. Is Google going to like it? No. Try another one. Try another one. Try another one. Try 5 at once. Try 10 at once. See which one Google likes the most. I would try 5 at once. Try 5 at once. See which one Google likes the most. And then I wouldn't go up to 10. And then see which one I like the most, and then use that one. Okay. Now, if that's making sense, folks, if that's making sense, then I will go over now then what my Cora content vectoring element potency method is. Hot off the press, done just this morning. I was testing this all out before talking to you. I'm 90% sure this is how you want to use Cora to do this stuff. And I will be refining this method for the course for this month. More than likely, I will be refining this for the course of this month. So this just doesn't make sense. Or you can hold off on page. Go ahead, hold off on it for now, and using Cora for now. But otherwise, if you want to do it, go ahead, use the methods I'm about to recommend, and I will talk about this. And I'm 90% sure this is going to work well. It's just finicking with Cora. I'm 99.9% sure of our testing. Implementing it with Cora, a program that's not meant to do what I'm about to show you how to do, is where the issue is. Before I do that, does anyone have any questions before I get to, does anyone have any questions about this before I get to Cora? How you would use Cora with this? I'll give you 30 seconds or so for, yeah, okay, so my words, you should be hearing my words. Darlene says, nope, everything is good. Okay, great, perfect, thanks guys. Okay, with that, okay then, as promised, so let's get to the Cora tactics of how you would do it. First thing, very quickly, this is the reports and LSI settings you would use. It's very similar to the old ones with a few changes. Now we want to add in the keyword density report because we need to, and add in the top words report because that's going to be interesting to look at. LSI report is structured like this, which is the way we did it before. And we use the charts. We don't need basic tunings or intermediate tunings because those tunings are based off of a different philosophical method, which is unproven, unsubstantiated, and at least away from our testing. Our testing has shown a different ranking methodology. So these basic tunings and intermediate tunings, you wouldn't go for at all. They're based on another ranking philosophy from a different wrong testing. Okay, after that, now this is what you're going to do. You're going to use Cora with quotes around your search to find you're doing that because you want to find the 1 to 3 competitors with the heaviest CV and not aspect QDD. You want to find the ones that have the best, the heaviest content vectoring, the best element potency, or the best body potency anyway, so you can match it. The element potency is what it is. Only in some cases would you be trying to beat it. And just as a note, after you do the search with quotes to arrange them in a certain way, then you want to sneak the search phrase back to non-quotes before running the report. Just go back and delete the quotations. I've tried it. It seems to work before you run the report. If you don't do that, which you don't have to, but if you don't do that, then all of the search factors in Excel will not work. They'll all have 0 because they're checking the competitors' pages for quote EMQ and not EMQ. So I hope that makes sense. So then you want to do is you want to choose the top 1 to 3 pages that seem to have the heaviest weight for your EMQ of what you want to do. EMDs, just here's another note, EMDs will likely have a higher boost because of the EMD only, so you should likely ignore them. And anything with an aspect QDD. So, for example, let me actually go into Cora here. So if I go into Cora here, I would do the search in quotes, and I'm going to get a bunch of results. I'll edit that in a second. And then what I want to do is I want to take a look. I want to eyeball this, and I'm going to see, okay, who's ranking here because they say Philadelphia car accident lawyers versus they're here because of some kind of aspect QDD. Well, definitely these guys here are definitely here because they say Philadelphia car accident lawyers. So I want to for sure go with these guys. Find law, you know, it is a directory. And so you're like, oh, is it here because it says it the most? And actually it does say it the most, even though it doesn't show up here. They do have PA car accident attorneys. They do have something that's semantically similar. So you could include find law here just in case to get their variances. And then expertise, what about this one? I don't think we want this one because this one is more about we looked at 372 car accident attorneys serving Philadelphia. This is a different, slightly different aspect. It's not clearly on the aspect we want. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm not going to choose expertise because it's not clearly on the aspect I want. I want to get the ones that are clearly on the aspect I want, that hopefully rank way above me. Okay, well then what about, we're not going to do Philly injury lawyer, because one, it doesn't have a clear aspect of what I want here. So, well, that's good, because so it's not being removed because of aspecting, but it is being removed because it has Philly injury lawyer. It has PMQ of the words in the EMD, and that could be part of the reason why it's getting boosted here. But it's not an EMD to the, it's not an EMD, it's a PMD. So you know what, I would include that one, Philly injury lawyer. That'll probably be fine. Ranspear does have it, so you could add Ranspear. So these could be your top 4 you've added, and that would be, I wouldn't add any more than 4. You probably don't need any more than 4. Those are the ones we could probably go with, and probably be pretty safe based on why they're ranking for the quotations. Monthly.com car accident lawyer is probably also a good one, because it's ranking here by the virtue of the page alone. Because monthly's not helping that really at all. So this is another one you could probably do. That probably wouldn't be a bad thing. And you could get rid of find law in case you were not sure about that one. If in doubt, you can manually look. If in doubt, go to this page and manually look at the URL in the content and see why it's ranking so highly for this phrase, how many times it says it and whatnot. Okay, so I've got those ones. Those would probably be fine. That's good there. Okay, now, so we've chosen our top 1 to 3 pages. I chose a few more, and that's fine, because this the guy I'm trying to rank here is nowhere. He's quite far down. He's nowhere near. He's not even on page 1 yet. So that's fine. That if he was number 6, I wouldn't want to be. Obviously you need to choose stuff that's at the very top of the content vectoring, especially when you do this search. Now what I want to do is, before I run the report, is I just want to sneak this back here. And it seems to trick Cora into giving me, so even the search terms in Cora work. Like you'll see here, they may not have a lot of data, but when I sort by the search terms, at least I get some results of the actual search terms, as opposed to 0. And I checked this site, and it doesn't say Philadelphia car accident lawyers in quotes. So this is not a mistake. It does not have this. It has the actual EMQ. So that works in Cora. That works fine. The one problem about Cora is that I checked the find law site, and it says Philadelphia car accident lawyer all the time, but it looks like this. It's like P Phil. It's like car accident lawyers perfectly, but then in the next paragraph it says serving Philadelphia right underneath it. Sorry if I misspelled that, but I'm Canadian. What do I know about your American spelling? And so this is in proximity to each other. Remember, proximity matters. And this was another awesome field test, proving and showing again that proximity matters. They're geographically located in the same area. So that is I would consider that a PMQ to the EMQ. It's close enough that it's a PMQ to the EMQ. It's very, very close. And so this actually should have like 10, because it showed up like 10 times. So I had to go and manually count it. So it doesn't really matter. I mean, on the one end, Cora is becoming less and less important to us the more and more we realize that, come on, let's go. The more and more we realize that you cannot deviate from this, you cannot deviate from this, you cannot deviate from this. Cora is only mildly important I'll highlight the ones that are mildly important for Cora in blue. Here, because you could learn how many PMQs they're doing here if you run a specific report for it. And to do that, you'd have to have every little variation of PMQs, which is slightly different than the way we're doing it now. And here, just to see how many times they're doing it in their body and what their keyword density is. But once we find what their keyword density is, then we're going to be stuffing it full anyway. So it doesn't really matter. And you're not going to want to stuff that full because your competitors are going to complain. So quite frankly, as long as you're stuffing this massively full, and you can be reasonably assured you're higher than all your competitors, which you might have to go manually check anyway, because sometimes Cora doesn't check it very well. Although my next recommendation is about to fix that part. Cora is becoming less and less useful to us, quite frankly. So I don't know. There's probably ways you could get around this and do this without even needing Cora. I'm leery to say that because Cora does track a lot of stuff and track some things that you might not even think to look at or go for. But it's getting, Cora is getting less and less useful the more we learn how it actually works. But that being said, it is going to be useful because the next thing we would do here, and how I screwed up here is that I was too specific on all my PMQs. We would need to go back, because now keyword density is important even for PMQs. We need to go back and have Philadelphia, car. All these words need to be individual PMQ words. Accident, lawyer, lawyers, and Cora will choose the max out of all of these. So it's choosing the max. If you didn't know what it was choosing, it's choosing the max. Philadelphia, car accident, lawyers. And that's kind of what you would choose. Philadelphia car accident, lawyer, in that phrase. And then the other thing you would do, which I'm about to talk about below, is you would go down to the related searches and you would not include any of these. You'd think I should be including PA in here, the abbreviation of Philadelphia. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. No, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. That's what PA is, right? Pennsylvania, is that it? I'm not American. I don't know your secrets. Philadelphia is the abbreviation of Pennsylvania. Hello, people. Philadelphia is PA is short for Pennsylvania, like that. Hello, anybody listening? Supposed to be 11 of you here. PA equals Pennsylvania. Thank you. Okay. So what is Philadelphia's? Does Philadelphia have a two letter abbreviation? Just Philly? What would be the abbreviation for Philadelphia? PHL is the airport. Okay, thank you, darling. Okay. Yeah, so then, so I just, the wrong words, the other thing applies. You think, so you wouldn't be adding Pennsylvania here, but you think you should be adding Philly, right? If that's supposed to be an abbreviation for Philadelphia. But no, Philly car accident lawyer is different than Philadelphia car accident lawyer. So you would not add Philly. So you need to look at the related searches, and you need to remember our rule that blue is a different page, black is the same page. And that still is accurate in Quora, and that still is accurate to what you want to do. So in this case, in Quora, Philly lawyers or Philly car accident lawyer is different than Philadelphia car accident lawyers. For some silly reason, it is, because that's just the way the clicks clicked. And so you would include all these guys, which is different than the last way I taught it, because as now keyword density is important, whereas before it didn't seem to be important. Well, now it is. And I would also include the page one average as well. And then from here, you would click your tract. Let's say it's this guy. This is not my client, but let's say it was. I would click that. And then I would say, get data. Okay, so I'm going to go over more of that and how you would analyze all that in the course. Let's just try to finish this up. I've been talking a long time here. So the tactics is you would choose to one to three pages that seem to have the highest weight for your EMQ. EMDs will have a higher boost because of the EMD only. PMDs are fine. If the asks match the EMQ. Make the variant keyword. Actually, I'm changing this. So this is where I see I'm changing it as I go. Add in all PMQs as normal and the EMQ. Include plural variations. That's not going to be a problem anymore. So don't worry about that. Make sure, as I said, you check related searches at the bottom to make sure you're not straying off the EMQ too much. And then you run the report. So that's easier. So the way that Quora does it automatically probably will do it for you. Actually, it won't. Actually, it won't. So there's another way you could do this, actually, by the way. You could go like, okay, I'll tell you what I'll do. I will do this here. Actually, you could use Bright Local. No, you wouldn't want to do that. You would go here. You would use the same test SERPs we use, the same SERPs we use to run our tests. Then you would do the search. Oops, that's not what I want. Then you would do the search. You're getting a number 100. And this would probably be more accurate. And I would choose my competitors in here. I remember who I'm going to choose in here, although it shows exactly what Quora showed. And then you choose your competitors, the ones that are probably ranking better for this because of the quotes. And then you go into Quora without the quotes, and you do this, and it's going to give you the PMQs that you need to worry about. But see, it's doing it wrong. It added in Philly. Where is Philly? You don't want Philly. And it's doing attorneys as well, but they're highlighting attorneys. Let's see at the bottom. Yeah, no, never mind. Never mind. Do it like I have it here. Do it like this, like I said here. Do it this way. You want to do it in here because now it's starting to blur things and add other things in that are not as strong on the content vector. Being as strong on the content vector is what you want to do no matter what QDD stuff Google starts floating in there. Yeah, so that's what you want to do. So no, this is correct. The way it's written in here is the best way to do it so far right now. I will change this as time goes on. And so remember the quick recommendation on the so these are my quick recommendations on your on-page recommendations that you would make coming out of the Excel. Remember, this is the important thing. Keyword density or the potency per element don't exceed thresholds. Get all important heaviest LSI in the first paragraph. Proximity matters. while keeping the entire document potent and short. And remember, the most potent wins. We no longer want to match word counts. We no longer want to do that. Keyword mentions plus density matters per element, and that includes the body and the paragraph tags as well, i.e. the main text. You want to beat the match count and the keyword density of your competitors per HTML element. This is very important here. You want to beat the match count and the keyword density of your competitors per element unless they go over. See above, do not go over the tested thresholds. Here's another way that you could just do this, and it might be a little bit easier than trying to fake it after the fact. Steal the competitors' pages. Steal the top, after you do this keyword search, and you see who the best pages are for this that are similar to yours, like this one here, maybe. You go to this page. This is obviously for a Philadelphia. Now, I don't like this. Actually, no, that's the wrong one. This is one we decided is not. This guy is the closest competitor that's obviously is ranking because of what they're saying to that. So I would go to this guy's page and I would copy it, the whole thing, and I would rewrite it. You might want to do it that way. That way you're gonna automatically catch all the PMQ and LSI in there that's important to you. Or at the very least, you want to that might be easier than adding the LSI in after the fact, because when you see the LSI for this thing, the LSI is huge. Like there are tons and 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 tons. See how far up here I am? And rows and rows and rows and rows of words you need to add in here. The problem is because these effing pages are so long, these guys are way longer than the competitor, but it's a double-edged sword. You need to add in all the EMQ and PEQ of weight and the LSI words, some number of LSI words, maybe 50% of them. But the longer the page is, the more negatively charged words you have, and the more words you have that are going to be charged on another vector, right? Remember the vectors, they separate. So the more words you're choosing that are complementary to both, the less you're going to rank well for either, quite frankly. You want to get words that are charged for the particular vector of what you want to rank for. So this is, you don't want to match the word count anymore. You want to get all this important LSI keywords in here, all the ones that are at least the ones that are correlating to ranking. But these pages are so damn long that, you know, it's kind of unwieldy. So that's why I recommend in this case, it might be easier just to go to your competitor's page and rewrite it. Do a sentence for sentence rewrite. Keeping in mind, you always want to add in LSI words, EMQ, PMQ, and LSI words in every sentence if possible. So, but then you have to use your taste. You have to use judgment and be like, but this is clearly too. I mean, the first paragraph you can stuff it full, but then in all the other paragraphs underneath, you might be like, that's too much. So again, you know, it really is a judgment call, an art of how we're going to do this, because you see all the LSI words you need to add, like in this particular case. In some cases, it's not so bad. I would add everything that's like from probably here up would be important. Because they correlate probably higher than a -10. That's just my general rule of thumb. That's probably what you need to add. So that's a lot. That's how many words that needs to be added? That's 2,694 different LSI phrases you need to add to your page. Not including the stop words. So, I mean, that might be a good rule of thumb to know how long your page needs to be. Take the -10 of the correlation, go up and see how many the count is here. And that's the count. That's how many phrases or words. So anywhere from 1,000 to 2,000 words. So you don't need to be the actual vector max that they have. That's not what you'd want, or the average. You'd want to be lower than that for sure. But this word count would probably have to go up from where it is right now. Will probably have to go up of this particular site that I'd be doing this on, because they only have 442 words. Whereas it's adding too many extra words is going to derank you. I've proven that. But they have so many charged words that if you want to get close to the score that they're getting, like put it this way. Let's say each word was worth 0.4. So this guy's let's say each word was worth 0.4, and on average they had 80% important words. They don't, but let's say they did. So that means this guy times 0.8. Oh, I'm going to need to be able to see what I'm doing here. There we go. That means you could say this guy times 0.8 for all those charged words. He has a weight of that, a content vector weight of that. And if we did the same for this, you would only have a weight of this. But let's say this guy wasn't very well optimized at all. Let's say he only had a weight of 0.2. That would be his weight, and you're way better because you're optimized at 80% of your words are the charged vector words, whereas 20% of his words are the charged vector words. But he still beats you out of content vector weight just because he has so many more words than you. And the trick, I hope you guys can see this. The trick is to change your optimization so that it is, you could never get 80% LSI words. I mean, only on like a 100-word page could you do that. But the trick is for you to add enough words and enough vector weight until, say, okay, let's see if I add 500 words and I can maintain that 80% vector keywords. Oh, I'm getting there. Okay, well, how many words do I need to beat them? Maybe 700? No, I'm going to have to go up to 1,000 words. Boom. Now finally you have a higher weight, but you only had to add, 500 pages, 500 words, sorry, because you're using more highly charged words than this guy, which is very poorly optimized, but is just ranking better because he's got so many more words. Does that make sense, guys, of how that math works out? And so you've got to kind of understand how that math works and guesstimate, be like, here he was at 444. He wants to be somewhere between that and this, but he wants to add in as many charged words as possible. And so doing that, but also making it human readable in the places it needs to be human readable is really going to be an art. And that's just the way it is. It's going to be an art. Does that make sense, guys? How I explain that? Let me know if that makes sense, guys, the way I explain that. Or if you want me to talk about that again. Every word has a weight, and it's just that they're not going to be less optimized. They have 3,000 words, but they're only using 20% of the LSI words, whereas you have 500 words, but you've just stuffed it full of the EMQ, PMQ, and LSI words, and there's going to be some magic number where you catch up with them. And it's going to be less words than they have, and that's what you want, but it's going to be approaching their words. Because at the end of the day, you can only humanly stuff in EMQ, PMQ, and LSI words to some degree. Okay, great. Rick says yes. Darlene says yes. Great. Okay, fantastic. So that's the tactics as they stand for the most part. Oh yeah, right. Sorry. No, I just have a couple of things to go through. So in that case, you might want to steal the top competition's article, spin it, rewrite the spin, rewrite it manually. Actually, you don't want to spin it because that'll be spinning. That'll be, never mind. You want to manually rewrite it by with having a mind for keeping in those LSI words. You might want to take this LSI report out of Cora. Wrong thing, sorry. You might want to take this LSI report out of Cora and copy and paste this and put this into the document and just start writing these all into sentences. Like, these words are, this is a sentence about an accident, a sentence about an injury, a sentence about attorneys, a sentence about accidents, a sentence about medical. You might want to do it that way. Take it like, sorry. No. You want to take it like this and go, okay, Josh thinks all the way down to, and he sorted it from best to worst, because remember, I did my score of what correlated the most. I did my score here of what correlated the most, plus correlated the most, plus had the most pages and had the highest total. These are the most potent content vector words. And then you go down to whatever I had here. I had 2000. I had 2,600 words, as I recall, phrases. Geez, this is a big document. This is like the worst case scenario. It probably won't be this bad for most of you. So I'm at -12 correlation. That's as far as I would, and there's only one instance on one page. Okay, wait a minute. I don't want one instance on one page. I want more pages than that. This is still showing one page. Now it's 2 pages. I don't know. You could probably do about here. Oh, I'd put the count way down to 519. Okay, like safely about here. I'm looking at the pages here is what I'm looking at. There's 2. Okay, maybe here would be safe enough. Oh, there's only 823 words. This is much better. Okie dokie. I take this. I fire up Word in my blank document. I paste it in. I paste it in without anything. Okay. And this is how I would write it. So first off, you would do your title, you do your meta desk independently, you do your H1 independently to all this process. You do your first paragraph independently to all this process. And then you'd be like, okay, suffered an accident or injury. We here at 345. Oops. No, I just pasted again. 3 here at 3045 attorney can help you. Don't use broken English. Broken English is definitely here at Josh Co attorney. We here at Josh Co attorney can help you. We specialize in accidents. It almost writes itself. Medical law in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. See how it writes itself? But you're getting the most highest words at the top. That's kind of how you might want to do it, right? We have, and it's kind of interesting how it's writing itself and how this actually makes sense. Like this is what you should say and what you would say normally. And if it's going like that, you know you have it right. You know you have it perfectly right. We have clients that like our law, like now I'm going off, you know, and lawyers. Now I'm going off. No, I'm going off the rails. But you get the idea. You don't have. I even added in the stop word. You don't have to add in this stop word or this stop word. Those are stop words. You don't have to worry about that. Okay, but that would be kind of how you do it. You've already stuffed this full of EMQ at least times 10. This document, you've already done EMQ, PMQ here. You've already done EMQ, PMQ times 5 here. You've already done EMQ here. You've done EMQ times 10 with with lots of PMQ and LSI stuffed in. This document, just from this alone, should be the most potent document on the EMQ you're trying to rank for. But then you add in this LSI method I'm showing you here of probably the ones that are the ones that are still on all the pages or still correlate really well. Like you're getting down to like, it's only one page for most of these words. That's probably, we're still probably really good. I could probably even peel it back even further. I could probably peel it back even further and just be like, let me do some conditional formatting to make it easier. So I want the most green here, really. So I could even take it back to, whoops. I could even take page down, not control. I could even take it down to, I still got page fours, page threes. Okay, they're on all 3 pages, 2 pages, until I have 1. I could probably take it down to here. And that's only 725 words. So that means my, page is going to be however many filler words did I add on average here. I could probably tell you. On average, how many words did I add in here? I added in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I added in 12 words, and that's I think I added in about 12 words. And for other words, I added in total 31 words. So quite frankly, it's almost like it's a little over, ignoring stop words. It is about 50%, like I guessed. So quite frankly, when you go into Cora here and you're like, okay, these are the top LSI words I know I want to get in here. There's 726 of them. My article is probably going to end up being 1,400 words in total, and that's probably as big as it needs to be while writing for human beings. And it just so happens when I look at the overview and to see how big from 444 it was and how much room I have here to go, it's going to be 1,400. It's only 50% saturated, but it's still going to beat them, even if it's still going to beat them. Not if they're 50% saturated, it's not going to beat them. But if at their weak 20% saturation, it is going to beat them. I can actually break down the math for you. Did that make sense for everybody? How I broke down that math? If we have 1,400 words and half of them are LSI, not including the stop words, then that's rough. It's a rough numbers. This is rough math. But that's how it breaks down. We would need a program. We would need another Cora just for us to do this kind of crap. But that's kind of how it broke down anyway. You can get a better sense when you go to the LSI keywords and you're like, okay, well, at the very least here, I need to add in 700 to 1,000 words. And that's a very big article you need to write because all your competitors have very big articles here because some SEO told them more words are better. And hey, maybe when the SEO told them that, it was, but not anymore. It's potency. But like I said, it's got to be in the middle between 1,000 and 2,000 anyway, which was my rough guesstimate. And that kind of more accurately is where it seems to come out. So on average, you probably want to be half of what the page 1 average is, or half of what the average of this average is 1744. Oh, that's much less. Wait a minute, how is that possible? That average can't be that. That average doesn't make sense. Oh no, it's because it's selecting everything. Select just not the hidden cells, just select those. Yeah, the average is 2,800. It's exactly 1,400. So like I said, on average, you could guess that they're going to be whatever your competitors you've chosen for the content vector are going to be at. If you're doing more potent words, you want to be probably about half that. if you're using 50% potent words, which is what it ended up being when I wrote this sentence. Oddly enough, that's what it tended to end up being. Without the can is going to be a stop word, and is a stop word, in. I could get you a much more, if I got a list of stop words and figured out what stop words were, and I wrote a much longer document to break out the statistics, to smooth it out, I could actually get you the real number of what that actually is. But it would still be a guess. So I don't know if getting you the real number there would help you really at all, but. Okay, so to round this out, so that's interesting how that it did break down to half of the of the actual average of the people we're actually looking at here was 2,800, and 1,400 is where I guesstimated you would need to be to beat these guys. That's kind of funny how that works out. So the magic number is around 50%. If you're doing this method and stuffing in the most important words at the top. And that's, again, after you've already done this anyway, which should beat them, should win anyway, because you've just stuffed this like crazy. Okay, so anyway, I hope that all makes sense. Let me go back here to, I'm not going to need this. Let's go back here to the tactics and let's just finish this out. The other thing is that we already talked about is stealing their HTML, non-rendering for sure. You definitely want to steal the non-rendering HTML. If you don't know what that is, you're gonna have to take an HTML class. You cannot be an SEO unless you understand HTML pretty well, because that's what you're manipulating. It's like you can't get a black belt in karate unless you know punching and kicking, because that's 90% of what karate is, punching and kicking. So you can't be an SEO unless you know HTML. That's 90% of what SEO is, knowing HTML. And you might even want to steal the rendering HTML, the whole page, and put it in a comment. I don't know about that. I'm gonna get rid of that for now. And right now, I'm gonna say you want to steal your competitor's competition. You definitely want to steal their HTML. Their non-rendering HTML. I'm not going to recommend you put that because that might mess up your potency, So, like I said, this is what you want to do is you want to use the LSI paste to word like I showed in the test meeting July 15th. I like that method better. That works better because you're adding in the best words. That's how you should be doing it. And I'm going to remove the formatting from this. I'm going to add it to this. So I think that's the better way of doing it. Steal the competitor's non-running HTML. Add in the remaining top LSI in the main document. Yeah, I talked about that. Above, don't forget proximity. Bunch all the heaviest keywords at the very top of the document. First paragraph for all enqueue, PMQ, and heaviest LSI for sure. So that's how that works. So just to give an example, which is exactly what I did. The URL, the title, the URL is just emq.html. The title would be EMQ, PMQ preferably. The meta desk, you would do EMQ plus PMQ times 5 at least. H1 is just going to be the EMQ. And the first para, like I said, is going to be EMQ up to times 10 or higher if comp is higher. That's another reason why you're using Cora, just in case they're higher than our ridiculous amounts, with plenty of PMQ and LSI as stop words. Try to maintain 50% keyword EMQ density, 50% match word density. Keyword, like keyword, and when I say keyword density, in that first paragraph at least. That is essentially what we're saying. Especially in first para. I'll put that up here as well. I will make that not so eye-bleeding. You're not going to be able to maintain 50% keyword density, even with the PMQ and LSI. That's not going to be possible. But that's the goal. And then subsequent paragraphs, headings is as per comp, and LSI tactic highlight from, oh no, you sort in Cora, as shown, paste into Word, use as ammunition / inspiration for the rest of the document. See July 15th test meeting. What is today, which I just talked about that. Okay, so that's it. It took 2 hours to talk about. I promised I'd talk about the science after this. Does anyone have any questions on how that worked? Okay. So Richard says, when you say don't double up keywords, I already talked about that. Yes, so have you field tested and seen if these pages rank for a lot of terms all at once, like the long ones normally do? The long pages normally rank for hundreds of terms. Well, the longer they are, the more they rank for, but the weaker they rank for everything. Remember, the longer they are, the more they rank for, but the weaker they rank for everything. In the way we're doing our testing in my method, you wouldn't double up pages like this electric guitars and acoustic guitars. The rule applies if you don't want to risk your rankings, if you like your current rankings, if your client likes your current rankings on multiple keywords for a page, then you don't mess with them. If you're ranking 4 and 5 for high ranking terms, you're getting traffic for that. If you start trying to remove acoustic, or if you're trying separating these out, you are going to lose rankings for a while, and maybe for one of the keywords for a long while. So Rick, I do understand. I know you work for bigger e-commerce clients, and yeah, you're going to be ranking for, because they're big companies usually have money and good link equity and whatnot, you're going to be ranking for a lot of stuff on a single page. That is kind of contradictory to the way we do our method. Our method is laser focused. And so you have to make the judgment call if the rankings are good enough that you're going to leave them alone, or they're not good enough, they're not bringing in what you want, so you have no choice but to edit them and change them. Okay, and so my voice is getting sore. I'm sure you guys are tired of listening to me. If you guys want to see the test results, they are all here in test results. It's all the stuff that I've talked about here. On-page potency, you can see here the 12 keywords, 1, gibberish in H1. The more gibberish you added, 200 words, the worse it was. Same here. The best potency always won. This 23 words, the best potency won. There was an aspect boost here that went through. I did have an aspect boost, but basically The more gibberish and the more words you add, the worse it was. So, I mean, you could go through that, but that's pretty clear. And I showed the words in the title, double PMQ1, EMQ PMQ1, and that's QDD. I proved it because I had 2 pages with the same. This page should have been over this page. If it wasn't, if we're just content vectoring, it's not. It's content vectoring plus QDD. So you can go over that. The primary keyword is exactly the same. You can see that in the title. It's EMQ PMQ. So this is exactly what it proves. And it proves it's a QDD placement. Meta description keywords, I did the same thing. You can look at this test. And at the end of the day, it comes out to PMQ times 2 times 3, control page, PMQ times 1, EMQ. It always has the PMQ times the highest. In fact, I even cranked it up to 11 and put 5 PMQs in it, and the 5 PMQ one. You see the 5 PMQ is at the top. So don't overstuff the EMQ, but you can do EMQ and up to 5 PMQ. So I mean, that was the science, and that went pretty fast, didn't it? So, but I've already kind of explained the whole thing. All right, guys. So I'm tired of talking. I'm sure you're tired of listening. I hope that makes sense. Good luck with this new method. We will keep testing it, and we will keep playing with it until the course this month, which is on the 25th. It's in 10 days. It's on the 25th. That's the last Thursday of the month. And that's when we'll have a course. And I'll go over this again with whatever field tests we've been doing and however it's been working. So go ahead, play with this, test this out, see how it works for you. And we will adjust on the 25th. And good luck in the serves. See you next time.